Civil liberties versus national security. Life before 9/11.
Sedition Act of 1798. In 1798, Congress passed the Sedition Act to quiet pro-French, anti-Federalist dissenters who disapproved of a possible war between the U.S. and France. The act required criminal penalties for people who said or published anything false, scandalous, or malicious against the federal government, Congress, or the President.
1861 and President Lincoln. President Lincoln suspended habeas corpus without waiting for Congress to authorize it. He ordered military authorities to arrest and detain without trial those in the northern and border states who aided the rebel cause. Schenck versus U.S.
In 1919, U.S. Supreme Court in Schenck v. United States upheld the Sedition Act. In 1918, Charles Schenck, General Secretary of the American Socialist Party, was arrested and convicted for sending 15,000 anti-draft circulars through the mail to men scheduled to enter the military.
In 1920, Attorney General A. Mitchell Palmer. In 1920, Attorney General A. Mitchell Palmer, using the full power of the Espionage Act, began the Red Scare, a series of political prosecutions of those who resisted the government policy, especially socialists, anarchists, and immigrants suspended under the un-American beliefs.
COINTELPRO in the 1960s. COINTELPRO is the FBI's counterintelligence program. It began out of frustration with U.S. Supreme Court rulings that limited the government's power to proceed openly against groups who challenged the status quo.
1981, Executive Order 12333. On December 4th, President Reagan signed Executive Order 12333, which extended the powers and responsibilities of U.S. intelligence agencies and directed leaders of U.S. federal agencies to cooperate fully with CIA requests for information. 1988 Civil Liberties Act. In 1988, Congress passed the Civil Liberties Act, in which the U.S. apologized to Japanese Americans for the grave civil rights violations during World War II and authorized the payments of $20,000 to each person who had been placed in relocation and concentration camps.
The events of 9/11. The year 2001, the Twin Towers in New York were hit by two planes. These planes were taken over by a terrorist group called Al-Qaeda, who was run by Osama bin Laden. The Patriot Act. The Patriot Act of 9/11.
The new law gave federal agents expanded authority to track the flow of internet and telephone communication. It also allowed the limited transfer of information from traditionally secret grand jury proceedings, law enforcement ability to access libraries, records of citizens, increasing time that the Immigration and Naturalization Services can be detained non-citizens.
Patriot Reauthorization Act.
In 2006, Congress passed the Second Patriot Reauthorization Act, the USA Patriot Act Additional Reauthorizing Amendments Act, in February, making permanent 14 provisions set to expire at the end of 2005.
2009.
On January 22, 2009, newly inaugurated President Obama proudly issued his first 3 executive orders. One of them, a directive requiring Guantanamo would be closed within 1 year. In March, the Obama administration submitted a file to a federal district court in regard to litigation over indefinite detention at Guantanamo. In this filing, the Obama administration adopted the Bush administration's position that people allegedly involved in terrorism were participating in a war and could be held indefinitely without trial.
2013 and Verizon. On April 25th, 2013, the FISA court gave the FBI unlimited authority to obtain data collected by Verizon. It requires Verizon on an ongoing daily basis to give the National Security Administration information on all telephone calls in its systems, both within the U.S. and between the U.S. and other countries. Executive Order 12333 in 2014.
In July 2014, the Government Oversight Agency, Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board, announced an interest in reviewing Executive Order 12333. Later that month, former State Department official John Tai published an editorial in the Washington Post, citing his prior access to classified material on intelligence gathering activities under Executive Order 12333, and arguing that the order represented a significant threat to Americans' privacy and civil liberties.
One international threat we have today is ISIS. ISIS members are a part of a religious group called the Sunnis, who believe only a direct descendant from the Prophet Muhammad may lead them. Therefore, ISIS is run by Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. ISIS is terrorizing the Middle East, primarily in Syria and Iraq. James Foley, Steven Sotloff, Peter Kassig, and Kayla Mueller are all Americans who have been killed by ISIS. Many more have been beheaded and murdered in the name of Muhammad to start a caliphate. Civil liberties.
Internet and cell phone surveillance. NSA is a secret government surveillance program targeting phone calls and the internet. Through this NSA program, the government is notified when someone is inclined to violence or when they promote jihad or other terrorist groups.
Biometrics is the science and technology of measuring and analyzing biological data. Helps to prevent identity theft and also used for fingerprinting and voice patterns.
The government uses surveillance cameras in many different ways. One way are using traffic cameras to keep tabs on all licensed and unlicensed drivers. Early in 2014, the U.S. revealed new ways they racial profile, even though it is unconstitutional and unfair. It happens everywhere. Are we truly safer today?